Howdy folks. Pro tip, Mio Fruit Punch and Crystal Light Lemonade, combine them about 50-50, magic. Okay, anyways, as it suggests on the screen, what we're going to do now, my friends, is we're going to talk about how bills become laws here in Canada. So there's a few things we need to understand before we even do this, and that is, what's a bill? What's a law? So a bill is simply a proposal for a future law. Pretty simple. So if you hear the term, in the House of Commons, they are looking at a bill that looks at, legalizing the use of hallucinogenic drugs like mushrooms or something like that. I don't know. I mean, they've been talking about it before. So that would be a proposal for a law. So bills, once they go through deliberation in the House of Commons, they go through readings, they go through scrutiny, and then they move to the Senate. Once they go through those two houses, then they become laws if they're passed by a final vote. Okay, simple stuff. Okay, now, guys, I guess the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is the law? And going back to 16th century philosopher Thomas Hobbes, who you've probably never heard of, Hobbes wrote a book called Leviathan, and you can actually see an example of that book cover here. So the Leviathan, this individual right here, is this omnipresent, omnipotent individual. He is everywhere, and he is all-powerful, who is looking over his land. And basically what happens, guys, is people who are evildoers, who are wrongdoers, he sees them and he crushes them with his absolute authority. He takes his giant mighty thumb and squishes you like an ant under his foot. Kind of neat. The chainmail that he is wearing here, this individual, this sovereign, this king, is made up of the victims of people who have tried to test him. Now, just so you're aware, in Leviathan, Hobbes makes the argument that human nature is nasty, selfish, poor, and brutish, right? And that life without strong government and strong laws, strong rulers, would be a very short existence for most people. Why? Because we would run around killing each other, trying to satisfy our own selfish needs. So Thomas Hobbes has a very negative view on human nature. He did not see a lot of good in us as humans. So he said the only way we can have an organized society where it's not basically a bloodbath, or as he called it, war of all against all. Think about that for a sec. So the only way we could not have this society of war of all against all would be to have the Leviathan, through fear and punishment, control us, right? You know, if you think you're going to get punished for doing something, chances are you're not going to do it. If you know that the punishment for doing something wrong is going to be so extreme that you're going to die, like the Leviathan coming and just squashing you, you're not going to do it. So I would argue, ladies and gentlemen, that the law as we have it today is really sort of that Leviathan, right? That, we have this system where we get punished if we do things that are wrong. And there's police out there who see things. There's people who can call 911 or phone in a complaint when we do stuff wrong. And then, of course, there's the system of punishment that is used to try to punish those who do wrong, but also act as a deterrent for other people to not do wrong. Maybe you were thinking about doing something wrong, but then you heard about this guy who robbed a bank and then got put in jail for 10 years because of it. Chances are you're probably not going to do it. Okay, so that's what Hobbes' Leviathan is all about. So my argument here, folks, is that the Leviathan today is the law, right? Like our legal system is that Leviathan that keeps us from this society of, war of all against all. And maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think that human nature is in fact positive. And if you think that, I would argue that you're pretty ignorant the way the world actually works. I would love to believe that there's goodness in all of us, and maybe there is, but I also think there's an overarching sort of selfishness and primalness to our existence that, despite the fact that we live in lives now where you can just go onto your phone and, order Google Uber Eats or skip the dishes and have food just come straight to you, right? That doesn't mean that our own selfish nature hasn't or doesn't still exist within our genetics, right? Selfishness and greed is something that I think is ingrained in us because for almost 300 years or 300,000 years of our existence, less the past, maybe 100 years or so, life was difficult. So anyways, let's move on. So, I explained that here, the Leviathan in modern society, the law. So let's move on and talk about passing laws here in Canada. So guys, passing laws, it's known as the legislative process. And remember guys, the whole point of passing laws is to prevent society from denigrating into a sort of chaos that we don't want, right? That we don't want. And also remember guys that the laws that are passed in the House of Commons have to be in line with our Canadian Constitution, right? Nothing that is passed in Parliament can contradict what it says in the Canadian Constitution and also in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And if a law is passed and its validity is questioned, the Supreme Court of Canada will eventually rule on that, and they'll either say, yep, it's fine, or no, it's unconstitutional, and then that law gets struck off the books. Okay, so to prevent tyranny and dictatorship, guys, there is a strict legislative process that is followed here in Canada. And basically, this is it right here. Now, please understand, earlier in the course, I spoke about how there's two houses here in Canada. We have a bicameral parliament. There is the House of Commons and there is the Senate. Laws can be introduced, bills can be introduced in the House of Commons or the Senate. Bills that are introduced in the House of Commons start with the prefix C, like Bill C-16. Laws that start in bills that are proposed, in the Senate start with an S. And you should know this, but this is just review because review is good. So anyways, guys, who proposes these in the House of Commons? Who proposes these bills? And the answer is the Prime Minister and the Senate, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, not the Senate. So the Prime Minister and the Cabinet propose bills based upon what they think most people want. Remember, guys, the whole point here is that whatever is done in Parliament should represent the will of the people. So the bill is introduced in something known as the first reading. Okay, it's just introduced, and that gives time for other people to read it. From there, it goes on to second reading, where now we get to have some debate. We get to have some debate about the bill. Why do we have debate in the House of Commons about a bill? Well, because we want to make sure that all aspects of the bill are critically examined to ensure that this bill does indeed represent the will of the people, that all of the unintended consequences of this bill that perhaps weren't thought of when it was in its infancy are brought forward. And at that point, second reading is over. From there, it goes to what's called committee stage, where experts on the topic of the bill are brought into the House of Commons or the Senate, if it's a Senate bill, and people testify about, why this is a good idea or a bad idea. Hey, did you consider this? And again, guys, the point of this, once again, is to ensure that all of the unintended consequences of the bill are addressed. All the important matters in the bill are addressed. At that point, other amendments can be made now that we've had experts testify and discuss the bill. And at this point, guys, it goes to what's called third reading. Third reading is where the members debate those new amendments that are made in the report stage right ahead of it. And at that point, there is a vote in the House of Commons. And basically, when they vote, guys, it's yay or nay. If the yays win, it then is, quote, passed in the House of Commons. If the nays win, or the noes, then it is not passed and the bill dies. That is it. It is done. So guys, this is a check and balance. This ensures that not every law which is proposed by the government, which may or may not be a good idea, but this ensures that not all bills are passed. If the bills don't appear to represent the will of the people, if they don't appear to be in the best interest of Canadians, then these bills are not made into laws. Now, if the yeas win during the third reading, it moves to the Senate, and the exact same process happens again in the Senate. First reading, second reading, committee stage, report stage, and then once it passes in the Senate, and bills typically do because senators are non-elected, right? We'll talk about that later. If it passes in the Senate, it then gets what's called royal assent, right? This is where if the Queen is in Ottawa, she will give her signature and it becomes the law of the land. Or usually the Queen isn't in Canada. She happens to be in Great Britain in Buckingham Palace. The Governor General, right? Julie Payette is our current Governor General, right? It's what, 3rd of December 2020 when I make this video. Julie Payette is our current Governor General, and she gives royal assent. So guys, the person who officially signs a law into existence is the Governor General, not the Prime Minister, right? It's actually the Governor General or the Queen if she happens to be here. Okay, so guys, this is all discussed in this right here. Okay, now some key things I want you to understand about the legislative process. There are numerous opportunities for dialogue to ensure the bill, which may become a law, represents the will of the people. I'm going to change that to will. Look at that. Through the magic of video editing, it now says will of the people. So next, bills that do not have the confidence of the people do not become laws, right? By the time we go from introduction, first reading, all the way to third reading, there's been a whole lot of time that has passed, a whole lot of dialogue that has occurred. And if it's thought that the bill isn't a good idea, then in that final third reading, when there's the vote, that law gets struck down, right? Or that proposed law, that bill gets struck down. And many experts are called upon to ensure that bills that are laws are something that advances the general will of society. All right, so there you have it. Laws advance the general will of society. So this video here, guys, does a really great job in sort of putting the legislative process into a little bit more context for you. So again, make sure you watch it. Now, moving down, there's one other kind of bill that we need to speak about. Look at that meme. I love me memes. I loves my memes. And that's what's called the Omnibus Bill. Okay, Omni meaning many. Okay, so guys, usually when legislation is introduced into the House of Commons, it's about one general thing. Like in the case of what's on the screen here, the legalization of marijuana, right? Yes, there'll be multiple aspects to it, but it'll be about one topic. Now, sometimes instead of one bill focused on sort of one singular topic, the government at that time will try to push through something known as an omnibus bill. Okay, so guys, omni is a Latin prefix that means all. And basically, guys, what an omnibus bill is generally is it is a budgetary bill that has a whole bunch of other stuff packaged up into it. And governments typically will pass omnibus bills because as budget bills, they rely upon the bill being passed in order to ensure that they get raises or to ensure that there's adequate funding for government programs and stuff like that. So they typically will not kill those bills. However, packaged into these omnibus bills are other things as well. These omnibus bills are typically so robust and so huge that no one really has the time nor the will to actually go through all aspects of these bills. So it's a really sneaky way as a budget bill, as a bill that typically can be hundreds or even thousands of pages long, to push through things sort of hidden in the bill to make sure that they become the law of the land, right? Sure, it's a quote budget bill, but there's a whole bunch of little nitpicky things in there that are also included that just sort of sneakily get passed by the Omnibus Bill. And many people actually criticize omnibus bills and call them undemocratic because there's no adequate way to actually have robust debate and deliberation about the legislation. So we see political cartoons like this, right? The metaphor of the Trojan horse, right? It's supposed to be a gift, it's supposed to be a good thing, but packaged inside of it, of course, are a bunch of soldiers, or in this case, a bunch of little sneaky things inside the law that they try to hide, right? So that people aren't really sure what's going on. So make sure you have a read of this, and then again, watch this video. This video by Rick Mercer, brilliant video about how sneaky omnibus bills in fact are. And this isn't just a thing, guys, here in Canada. In the United States, omnibus bills are also presented in the Senate or in the House of Representatives, right? Collectively known as Congress in the United States, that have been thousands of pages long. It's actually a ridiculous practice, but it happens. Okay, that's how laws are passed here in Canada. The key takeaway here, guys, is that there's multiple opportunities in most laws, with the exception of omnibus laws, to ensure that the laws that are being passed represent the will of the people, right? And that's the most important thing. Okay, love you guys, and we'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.